Hello, welcome to Steel City Business, the Sheffield business podcast. I'm James Marriott. I'll be your host as we explore the vibrant business scene of the glorious city of Sheffield. Now, in each episode, we meet someone from across the Steel City to learn more about them and, of course, their business. I run my own business. It's called Sound Media, and it's all about helping brands to amplify their voice through audio marketing. If you want to find out more, then head to the show notes. There's more information there. And this podcast is supported by the lovely people at The Curious, creative agency in the centre of Sheffield. Now, if you'd like to get in touch with us, maybe to suggest a guest or for any reason, then there are contact details in the show notes, or head to steelcity.business. Right, that's enough of that. Let's meet our guest.
Hi there, my name's Laura Mucklow and I'm head of Instantprint.
Laura, welcome to Steel City Business. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
I think this is the biggest factory that we've been in on the podcast so far, because this place is huge. Tell us a bit about what you do here.
So we are the UK's largest online printer. We manufacture and retail a range of marketing materials for small businesses. So flyers, posters, books, anything that's paper related and is used for businesses to promote themselves.
I've had a little mini tour. Just give us some idea of the scale of the operation that you've got here.
Yes, it is an impressive sight, especially when you come in for the first time. I remember being in awe when I first came in for my interview over 8 years ago, and we've only expanded since then. So we have 150,000 square foot production facility that's split over 2 sites, and we've got just over 450 people in the business now.
Wow.
When we first moved here, so we were based at Magna previously.
Yep.
And the first thing we said when we moved to this new site was, we're never going to fill that. And then fast forward 8 years, and it's almost a bit of a game of Tetris now to try and fit in some of the equipment. But no, the sheer scale is pretty impressive when you first come through.
So we're in kind of like the office bit. This is the bit that just feels like you're in a very normal office, and we're in one of your meeting rooms. But there's a window that overlooks the factory. But I've got my back to it, and I want to just kind of turn around so I can kind of see what's going on out of it, because I'm kind of fascinated by these big kind of manufacturing operations, because there's so many bits of kit doing so many different things. Do you know what everything does out there?
I think there's probably a few people in the business and they will absolutely everything does inside. But the longer you do work here, the more you pick up exactly which machines do what.
Absolutely.
We split the factory into different cells and different flows. So we have dedicated areas, for example, for business cards. We have machines that are based in different areas of the factory due to really minute things like the level of humidity that you've got in that side of the factory. We've had to reinforce with concrete certain areas for machines that are heavier.
Right. And
the factory's really set out to improve efficiencies from the flow of print that goes through. So everything is in a very specific place, so that we can basically make print as quickly as possible. Instantprint's the name of the brand, and fast turnaround's obviously our real USP that we want to offer to businesses, and the smallest movement of a machine can really impact the flow and output that you get from that facility.
You mentioned a couple of moments ago about moving from the previous site at Magna. Tell us a bit more about the background and the early days of the business.
So, although we're based in Sheffield now, the business was actually started in Newcastle in 2009. So our 2 founders started Instantprint straight after they graduated university. So They both went to Bristol. They were school friends.
Okay.
And while they were at Bristol, they started running club nights. And they were promoting student club nights.
Right.
And how do you promote club nights? You hand out flyers on the street. So they realised that they were really struggling to buy what they thought was a pretty simple thing to buy, club night promotional flyers.
Yep.
They found it difficult to find a graphic designer, found it difficult to understand what stock or GSM or these really complicated print terms.
Yep.
And they thought that there's probably a lot of other small businesses up and down the country that are having the same problem. And in 2009, people started to expect to be able to buy the majority of things online, and people started to expect to receive products quickly.
Yeah.
And the print market was very far behind where lots of other industries were at the time. So Instantprint were one of the first web to print is the term that we use, web to print platforms in the country. So they sort of identified that was a wish for businesses to be able to access that kind of marketing material.
Yeah. It's kind of timeless as well, isn't it, print? Because I'm of an age now where I remember when the internet was new. And when the internet came along and there were all kinds of predictions about things that people weren't going to do anymore. Like there'd be, postmen would all be redundant. No one's going to send post anymore. How ridiculous is that? And of course, it's completely untrue. But also things like printing things, like having printed material. No one's going to do that anymore. Everything's going to be online. Of course, that was completely wrong. But even during COVID, one of the things that I said was, I don't think no one's going to do business cards anymore, are they? Everything's going to be kind of virtual moving forward. And again, completely wrong. And time again, perhaps, there's been new developments and new things that have come along that make you wonder whether or not actually is printing anything still going to be as relevant. It's proven itself to be quite robust, hasn't it?
Surprisingly so.
Yeah.
I think the phrase or question we always get asked is print dead?
Yeah.
And I think that businesses are using print alongside their digital marketing activity. It's more valuable than you think to actually hold something tangible in your hand.
Yeah.
Businesses can get really creative with how they want to represent their brand. Luxury, especially, is far easier to convey over a piece of print in terms of the actual the feel of it in your hands rather than something that's just over digital.
Sure.
And we're seeing, I think you mentioned business cards. We see business cards as almost a symbolic representation of where businesses are in the market at the time.
Right,
we did see a decline over COVID. Obviously, networking was all virtual, so the actual opportunity to exchange business cards dipped, and we didn't know whether we'd actually see a resurgence in business cards from then. Over the past year, it's one of our largest growth areas at the moment, and I think people realised what they were missing, especially over COVID, and now place so much value on those face-to-face interactions. We're seeing more events in the UK have popped up over the past year than they had, or the growth it saw pre-COVID. So in a way, I think it showed the value of being in person and how much networking and how much face-to-face interaction can really help businesses grow.
Someone could do a degree in business cards.
Yeah.
Like you could do an entire thesis on it, because there's so many different ones. Business cards, they were all just pretty much the same. It was what colour was the writing and what font was it in. And now you get clear business cards, all kinds of different shapes and sizes, all sorts. It's fascinating that things like the world changes and moves on, but business cards are still business cards, and I kind of love that. So that's something that everyone will kind of be able to sort of dock themselves to in terms of everyone knows what business cards are. What other kind of things do you print here? I'm particularly interested in perhaps some of the more unusual things.
So a product that we're seeing a huge amount of growth in, that we've invested a lot into at the moment, is books and catalogues.
Oh, okay.
Staple booklets have always been a core part of our product range, and in 2001 we acquired a specialist book printer called Kingsbury Press, and they're sort of known in the industry as being the best book printers in the world. And if you like books, they are stunning, the sort of work that they produce. And by acquiring that business, it's allowed us to be able to use some of that state-of-the-art machinery and use some of the unique production methods. I think we've done work for Roald Dahl. We do work for massive big property developers over in the States. And I think that's, although maybe not unusual, is definitely a step away from the sort of more day-to-day work that we previously have been doing.
Okay.
There's the production method's called Gaybind. It's completely unique in the world, so we're the only printers now that can offer that. But you can offer sort of seamless photography that's spread over pages. So if you're wanting to show off a new development project or you're an artist, then I think that's where some of the real creative work can come through.
One of the words that's been mentioned a couple of times since I've been in the building, just as we were kind of walking up into this room, is investment. I think growth kind of came in there. Lots of terminology about where you're at and where you want to get to with the business. So tell us a little bit more about what you've got going on.
Just as we've come into this new year, we've just invested £5 million into the factory. So the most exciting one, if you're a bit of a print nerd, is we've invested in a second lander press. So we were the first in the UK to buy this sort of press. It was the first one that landed on UK shores.
Right.
And I think the main draw on it is it looks really impressive. So it was designed to look like the cockpit of a fighter jet.
Oh, wow.
So compared to what you might think of printers, it looks quite futuristic and impressive. The main draw of it really is it uses this, again, without going into the nitty-gritty, a revolutionary printing technology called nanographic technology. And the main benefit that we can give to customers, it can produce specific medium runs very cost effectively at really high quality. Mm-hmm. So it was the first in the print industry when we bought our first one before COVID, and I think buying the second has really shown the level of capacity that we're able to produce.
Okay.
And I think the main draw of that as well is in our books category. So I mentioned before, we've seen that they are a huge emotional product for small businesses. They're quite a high ticket item, and people put a lot of effort into representing their brand. It is literally their brand in a couple of pages.
Yep.
So we are trying to keep up with the demand for books and for high quality books quickly. So we've invested in our stitch liner capacity, 2 Muller Martini presses, which will be starting to arrive in March. I think I mentioned to you before when we were walking through, the factory does seem to be in a constant state of renewal, and we're moving things around to try and fit more things in.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that aligns quite well to that print isn't dead piece. We are seeing that businesses are wanting to represent themselves quite tangibly.
Books and kind of leaflets and stuff's another interesting one, isn't it? Because once upon a time, you might have thought maybe they'll be on a decline rather than on a rise. So I think that's really interesting. What's kind of the ultimate aim then? What are you kind of working towards? Because it sounds like there's a lot going on in terms of investment. There's a lot going on in terms of growth. Is it, is world domination? Is that the plan?
I mean, UK domination would be the first step. I think global expansion's been something that's been on the cards for a while. It's something that we're very interested in.
Yeah.
Our main focus was definitely to concentrate on the UK market. If you look at, especially in Europe, if you look at online print compared to offline print, the UK is very underdeveloped.
Right.
If you go somewhere like Germany or Holland, the web to print market makes up the majority of print spend. In the UK, it makes up 10%. So we know that there's still, on UK shores, a huge amount of opportunity.
Yeah.
Even since, I mentioned before, back in 2009, when the web to print platform launched, online print was really underdeveloped. Just wasn't something that you thought you could buy online. And we still see that businesses will want to go to their local print shop and talk through different options. And we're really trying to show businesses that it is quicker and it is easier, and you can buy print online just as easy as you could walk into a high street shop.
Okay. What's your background then? Tell us a bit about yourself.
So I joined the business 8 years ago this week, actually. So it's quite serendipitous that we're having this
happy anniversary.
This chat now. Thank you. So I actually joined the business as in an entry-level marketing assistant position.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I went into recruitment immediately after university, did English literature at university, went into recruitment afterwards, and I knew that marketing was something that interested me. I sort of enjoyed both maths and English, so I enjoyed sort of the logical and the creative side whilst growing up. So I thought that being able to work commercially and work creatively would be something that would be useful. So joined Instantprint as a marketing assistant, and back then we were a 2-man marketing team. So I think it shows the growth of the business, and really my career has grown with the business. We strive to hire people that we know don't necessarily need to have a background in print, don't need to have a background in manufacturing, but that align really well with our core values. And I'm sure we're not going to be unique in that, but we go with the premise of you can teach anyone anything apart from attitude. So if you enjoy working in a fast-paced environment, you enjoy learning, you're fairly determined and tenacious, then it's the sort of place where you are able to grow, and really sky's the limit from there.
Obviously, this is a big factory, and there's lots of machinery, and effectively, I think about printing. It's lots of machines. It's a bit scruffy, dirt, ink, all that kind of stuff. And I mean this in absolutely the right way, but it's not necessarily an industry that I would particularly associate with female leadership. So I'm interested in asking you a little bit about that, really, and in terms of, is it a particularly male-dominated industry? How have you seen things change?
So I would say that the print industry, like many manufacturing industries, is still fairly male-dominated.
Okay.
I think Instantprint, however, is unique in the fact, I think I said before, that we believe that we can teach anyone anything. Right. And we don't necessarily look for people with strong manufacturing backgrounds, but if you've got the determination and the ability to be able to learn, that's when they'll put sort of trust in you to be able to lead. I think it's a difficult question to answer because, unlike I know lots of my peers at Instantprint, I've never felt any sort of unjust or trials for being a woman in leadership. Mm-hmm. We really value people that want to deliver results and can deliver results. And I think when you understand that everyone is learning and that you're tolerant to everyone learning, that's when people will put, or the business will put, trust and leadership in you. And that's the sort of leader that I would want to follow as well, is someone that understands what they don't know as well as what they do know. Like many industries, the print technology is developing at such a fast rate that even very similar to tech, everyone's learning every single day. I think we do have a lot of female leaders in the business. We've got a lot of female leaders in the factory. We've got a lot of female leaders in more the sales teams and the brand teams as well. And yeah, it's a difficult question to answer because I think at Instantprint never felt like being a female has been a limiting factor. Right. And I think that that's really kudos to the leadership that we have in the business and what they place emphasis and where they place their trust.
Well, bravo, because I think the way that you kind of phrased all that is very logical in terms of it's about values, it's about what you're good at. Gender should be completely irrelevant, really, but it's great to see a business that's really kind of pushing that and is so willing to put females in leadership positions despite being in quite a male-dominated industry. Final question from me then. I know we spend all day every day talking about work and what we do and the businesses that we work at, and particularly people coming on this podcast have probably even done kind of podcast recordings or interviews or other kind of webinars and things talking about what they do. But I'm really interested to find out perhaps a little bit more about the people we get on the show. So what are you really passionate about that you've never really had the chance to talk about in a public arena before?
I think what's become especially prevalent over the past few years is culture in the workplace, something I'm very passionate about. I'm a very sociable person and enjoy coming to work, not just because of the work itself, but because of the team I've got around me. Yep. You spend the majority of your working life at work, and I think having a team around you that you can have fun with as well as being motivating each other and working hard makes the workplace a much more satisfying and rewarding place to be. I think there's a lot of people in the millennial age bracket that will probably agree as well. And coming out of COVID and the sort of Gen Z generation that are coming through do have sort of different expectations and demands on the workplace. Trying to build culture and build that team environment when you have people expecting different things, I think is is something that I'm very passionate about and think that it's really important for businesses to put a lot of emphasis on. People expect to be able to work from home now, and we should be able to cater to what people want. But I think something that we place a lot of emphasis on is trying to encourage social activities outside of work, trying to encourage friendships between people at work, because especially when you work in a sort of over 400 people, in order to get anything done, it's very difficult just playing email tennis with people. So I think it's going to be a challenge for businesses in the future, as people adapt and want different things from businesses.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to be focused on, and what I think a lot of people within the business and probably a lot of people in similar situations is trying to maintain that culture in businesses and maintain those relationships with different demands or different expectations that people have on the workplace. Well said.
It is interesting, isn't it? And it's kind of sort of changing times a little bit. COVID kind of just shook things up a little and made people just do a little bit of rethinking about where does work fit in with everything. It's still really important, but actually are there better ways of doing things. So great that you're open to that. I guess is it a tad more complicated here because of the fact that you've got the kind of people who are office based and people who are maybe factory floor based are maybe different in terms of their outlook on things?
We definitely see that it's a bit more complicated in comparison to other businesses. Think about a business, they will have a business model that's set on a function. So it'll be solely manufacturing, or if you're agency side, it'll be solely client relationships and marketing and creative. When you have a business where everyone is in-house, you've got a huge variety of people. You've got people who have 40 years worth of print experience and are probably Europe's leading knowledge on that specific print machine and can run it. And then we have a really strong web development team that's set up, run our websites, develop new features on our websites. And if that team was to work for a web agency, it would be very different. There would be a beer fridge and I don't know, pods that you get in the office. So I think it makes it a more interesting place to work because you meet people from completely different backgrounds and have different knowledge, and it becomes less of an echo chamber than it might be in a different place. It definitely poses challenges from that set because you want to make it a attractive place to work for everyone. I think on the benefit side, the variety is what makes it an exciting place to work, and I think opens opportunities as well. We have people that come into the business from say if you came in on a customer service role or a sales role, they are now leading the QA section for our web development team, or our team leaders down in our dispatch section, and they're flying to Germany to look at different dispatch techniques. So I think, yes, it does pose problems, but then the opportunity for progression and to learn new things is probably the biggest draw that we've got to counteract that.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. It's been lovely to chat to you. Great to have a look. I didn't realise I'm a print geek, but it turns out I probably am because I'm fascinated by what everything does and all the equipment that you've got here. So I'm going to go and have a little nosy around now, I think. But
of course, I'll show you around.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for listening to this episode of Steel City Business. It's been really lovely to have you with us. Now, you know how this works. If you've enjoyed it and you want in on future episodes, then just follow us on your podcast app or on YouTube. The show is very active on LinkedIn. Just search for Steel City Business and come and connect with me as well while you're at it. Big thank you to The Curious for helping make this podcast happen. There's loads more about the show at steelcity.business, and you can get in touch by emailing james@steelcity.business. And hey, if you're in business in Sheffield, then, well, why not put yourself forward as a guest for a future episode? And of course, we're always open for a good chat about how audio marketing could work for your brand. Until next time, thanks for listening.